so much for being here. Ilan Nettles was a client of the Ali Forney Center, and I have a very sad story to tell. I've been working with homeless youth in New York City for 20 years, and in those 20 years, 4 of our trans kids have been murdered in the streets.
Not one more!
Not one more! Not one more! Not one more! Not one more!
The first trans youth that I worked with who was murdered in the streets was a trans woman named Dionne Webster. She was murdered in 1996. Whoever murdered her was never brought to justice. In 1997, another trans woman that I worked with, Kiki Freeman, was murdered in the streets. Kiki Freeman's murderer was never brought to justice.
Shame on NYPD!
Shame on NYPD! Shame on NYPD!
Shame on NYPD!
Again in 1997, Ali Forney was murdered in the streets of New York.
Bullshit!
And once again, Ali's murderer was never brought to justice. And now, in 2013, another one of our clients, Ilan Nettles, was murdered. And once again, not brought to justice.
Shame on NYPD!
Shame on NYPD! Shame on NYPD! Shame on NYPD!
Shame on NYPD!
I'm going to tell another sad story. About 8 years ago, 2 of our clients were walking in front of a police precinct, the 88th precinct in Brooklyn. One was a gay boy and the other was a trans woman. They were set upon and attacked by 8 kids, 8 teenagers. They were being beaten down. The trans woman broke free and ran into the police precinct and begged for help. And the police officers refused to come out of the precinct. They refused to come out of the 88th precinct. They said, oh, because it's across the street, it's another precinct.
Come on! Shame on NYPD!
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 So here's what I want to say. I want to say trans lives matter. Trans lives matter. If Mayor Bloomberg's daughter was being beaten to death in front of a police precinct, I cannot imagine that the murderer would have been charged with a misdemeanor and that they would have gone for 5 days without collecting evidence. It's unimaginable. To have something like that happen sends such a clear message that trans people are not considered equal in this city. And we have to demand, all of us, that trans people be considered just as equal as any other member of this city.
We're not disposable.
I can't imagine that if Commissioner Kelly's daughter was being attacked across from a precinct, that they wouldn't intervene, that they would sit back and let it happen. Why does this happen to trans youth? Why does this happen again and again and again and again?
No! Not one more! Not one more! No!
I really think that this situation, this terrible murder, and the way that it's gone uninvestigated and unpunished is a real test for the new administration. All of the murders that I've described to you, all of the terrible incidents, they all happened under Bloomberg and Giuliani. So now de Blasio's being put to the test. The police who failed to investigate, who issued a ridiculous charge, who failed to collect evidence, need to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable. And this is a test for de Blasio and Bratton. Are they going to treat our community as equal citizens? So, getting ready for this speech, I went back and I looked at an amazing speech that Sylvia Rivera gave in 1973.
Yes!
Where she got up at a gay pride rally where they didn't want to let her speak, and she grabbed the microphone and she started screaming gay power. I thought about power. I thought about how when people are beaten in the street, how when people are beaten to death, it's like taking their power away. And I thought about how when the police fail to take it seriously, how that also takes people's power away. But we coming together to demand that our trans brothers and sisters be treated as equal citizens. This is our demanding power, and in honor of Sylvia Rivera, a great mother of our movement, I want to ask that you join me in another chant. Trans power!
Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power! Trans power!
Thank you all very much.
Defend yourselves like your lives depend on it, because it does.
It does.